pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. For everybody that is joining us on Zoom or online, I'd like to ask you to make sure you turn your mics off. And once you speak, identify yourself. So the secretary can take proper notes. Yes.
Also, everyone online, this is being recorded. You staying online, you accept that this meeting is recorded.
Everybody hear that? This is being recorded, so just want you to know that. On the agenda is roll call. And Secretary, you take care of that.
Mr. Osborne.
Present.
Mr. Adams.
Present.
Mr. McManaway. Mr. DeWitt.
Present.
Mr. Hubler is absent. Lee Marshall, I'm here.
Okay, thank you. We have actually two sets of minutes to approve tonight. I would entertain a motion that we approve them separately. Let's go ahead and approve them separately. First, the January 18th minute.
I'll make a motion that we approve the minutes from January 18th.
Okay. We approve the minutes from the February 18th meeting. Any discussion? All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Approved 4-0. Three variances, petitions to look at this evening. Two of them have been tabled from before. And Mr. Easterday, I think you're presenting all three of these, so I'm going to turn the.
Yeah, I believe the first one on your agenda was the Cook property, is that correct? And after our meeting on that, we've gone back to the drawing board and had some of your concerns. I would indicate to you that, as I recall, Barry had indicated he would feel this would be much more palatable if we could get it further away from the road. And so basically, we've gone back and run all the numbers, and we're presenting a plan here.
Other pages. No, get them right there.
Sorry.
I'm sorry.
We're presenting a plan here whereby we were asking for 18 feet from the road to the furthest projection of the plan, and that's on the south end at the gutter. And as you know, everybody asks, where do you measure to? You measure to the furthest extension. In this case, it's the gutter. And as you can tell by looking at this, on the north end, it's significantly more than that. But at the nearest end, as far as road back from the street, it would be on the south end. So we're asking for that, and we're asking for 15 feet on the lakeside. I'm not going to con you. We did slide the property just a little bit to the lake. Get some of this, but not all of it. I did run the numbers, and I'm the first to tell you, and we talked about it for 4 years. Don't set precedent to look at each project individually. I did run the 3 properties and, no, strike that, the 3 residents to the north and the 3 residents south. And interestingly enough, the average street side of those 6 properties is 6.7. If you do not consider the 3rd property, which is 51 feet from the street. If you consider that 3rd property, then they jump up to basically 13 feet. So we're running right in that area as far as where we are on average setback for on the lake. We're doing significantly better. If you take the 3 residences to the north, 3 residences south, and you end up with an average setback of about 24. And we're proposing 15 feet. I think this is a good project in that it would take a property that's basically not going to do anything forever unless we do something with it. And it would allow us to clean up the environment. Looking to take a lot of this property and pull up that concrete pad that's there and make it permanent. So we'll basically be looking at that. We'd also be looking at the environmentals.
What is the square footage now, Tim? I see it right down here.
He gave it to me, David gave it to me, 3040. Now, we looked at, I'll tell you that right up front, we looked at the possibility of sliding the whole property to the north, because if you look there, we're running the 20-foot setback to that one corner, and we could run a 10, because it's a side yard, it'd be a side yard setback, but you totally candidate just feel good, because then you take away your site distances to the lake, and one of the things that I think is critical in this lake is to be able to drive around and look through the properties. And that's why you changed your ordinance a couple of years ago to provide for that. So that's why we're at the 20 feet.
What's impervious surface ratio on this? I'm sorry, I just don't.
We will be under the 50.
You'll be under. Okay.
You can ask her.
And the dotted line is that, was that the previous proposal? So this was what it was before.
No, what David does
Okay.
when he makes a plan, David Kaiser, the architect, he takes what he considers to be the setback and then he draws it on the whole plan. And so if you look, there's the setback and then he draws it across. And he does the same thing on all 4 sides. So our setback dimension is right there, and then he just parallels it to the property line.
Okay.
Okay, so this is in-
That would be
That's a required.
that's a required setback.
What's the size of the lot? You know,
I do not, because I have to go back and look it up. It includes across the street, clear across the street. This is that crazy one that's got the street easement going down through the middle of it. And they bought both sides.
and I'm not, garage on the ends there bothers me. As far as people pulling in and out of there on a regular basis. And I don't, because there's a gate there now.
Yes, on the property line.
Right.
There's a gate. And then they have an easement through the property to the south.
But isn't there a gate off of the road? Then there's another gate.
I know there's a gate on this property, yes.
Yeah, we need to take care of this. Excuse me, who's ever online that's eating, would you please refrain from that? It's very annoying.
Yes, this is Diane Osborne. I'm not eating, but I do have a comment. There has been some written correspondence.
We aren't ready for comment session.
Diane, we had a static, like somebody was eating potato chips or something. And we're not having any questions from the audience right now. So I will be
Okay,
back.
okay. Okay, let me unmute. Okay.
If I'm hearing you, Dan, what you're saying is you're concerned about
I'm definitely concerned about the garage.
coming out of the south end of the
Right.
garage and then coming around.
And is the look going to be, I mean, obviously the
Yeah.
footprint has changed.
Yeah, but it's going to be the same look.
But the driveway is gonna be used in that easement that goes on the other property.
Yes, and the reason for that is if you're going to drive in and out of there, the grade differential on that retaining wall would prevent you from driving through the wall. You'd have to go around the end.
All right, is this actual permanent easement?
Yes. That's the look. It's the same.
It's on the south side, right?
So Jim, how does that easement work? Where is the driveway going to be and how will they come into this? Okay, so it'll be like this. It'll be a driveway like this coming in.
That's correct.
So what is the rear yard setback now in this drawing? I mean, in the original variance, it was rear yard of 3.5 feet.
Correct. And we're asking for 18. Right there, from the street.
18, right
Yeah,
here.
yeah. From the gutter
Okay.
to the street.
Most of the residences you compared this with, are they older ones that were pre-existing or have they been?
I hate to go there.
I just-
Two of them are rebuilds on the same foundation.
Okay,
And one of them, I think it's still maybe even construction. But the first one to the south is Mr. Craig's. And we've all been down that road. And his lakeside is like 2.5 feet and his street side is 0. And then you go one further south and it goes like 1.5 and 4. Then you go one further south and it's like 3 and 8, something like that.
And you are right. I mean, and that's the only reason they are there like that because we allow them to build on the same footprint.
Exactly.
And there is no footprint here, which makes it a completely different story.
I agree, but I just wanted you to be aware that it isn't a situation where the next door neighbor's 100 feet back and we're asking to go basically 15 feet back. 10 feet back.
So this is a completely separate lot from,
That's
the
correct.
Cooks own the house to the north.
That's correct. That's correct. But this lot does include across the street. It's really squirrely. This lot comes up here like this and then picks up this and this.
How much, doesn't it just include this and not this? I think there's a spot right there or something.
Yeah, yeah, there's a little
It's
spot
not,
there.
it's not this whole area here.
No,
I
it
don't
doesn't
think.
include the whole area. It's just a little spot there in the corner.
And I don't know why that little spot is there.
We don't either. If we have our way, we'll acquire it.
Jim, was this the previous, that right here?
No, that's the gutter.
Okay, I'm sorry.
That's the gutter. Because we go from furthest point.
And this setback here, it says from high water mark. Is that from just the sort of the end of the lot, 15 feet, or is it from the high water mark? 15 feet?
It's from the high water mark, because that's what your ordinance says. Shall be so many feet from the lake.
Okay.
And
but
so
this
we
looks
use,
like
we
it's-
all use that 934 point something high water.
Yeah.
mark.
But isn't that further out?
I
This
don't
looks
think
like
so.
it's just at the edge of the
I think
property.
it's pretty close to the seawall.
Okay. Oh, I see what you're saying. It's right here. Okay. Gotcha.
Why are they exactly, since they have both lots there, they want two separate houses for a
Yes.
reason?
For several reasons, and I can let Mrs. Cook speak to that. Currently, she's online. But basically, when they bought the properties, they bought them separately with the idea that they would use one for themselves and then they would use the other one for family.
So you don't know what the square footage is of the lot?
No, I don't. I'm sorry, I don't know. It's approximately 0.25 acres,
It's what, I'm sorry?
quarter of an acre, 0.25 acres.
That's including the.
Yeah, that's the whole thing that they purchased on this.
It's like 6,475 square feet.
It should be about quarter of an acre.
That's less than that, 43,000. 560. In an acre, 43,000 plus square feet in an acre.
Yeah.
So the north side, you could move that to 10 feet.
I think conceivably you could slide the whole thing to the north.
Yeah, move it off that easement then? You'd still have to access it through that easement, maybe less so?
Well, I think you'd have to access it just because of the height of the retaining wall.
Oh, okay.
Because that retaining wall starts at about 4 feet, if I recall. Is that right, Chuck? Does that sound right? That retaining wall starts about 4 feet high and gets deeper.
Okay.
I just think that would give them, and since they're having to get access through the neighbors, and I realize they have a right of way that's been there for years,
Correct.
but the neighbors use it for other reasons too.
Okay.
I know Gary uses it to take boat lifts in and out.
And that's really the primary, that's the only, I don't know of anybody else that uses that other than for
Well,
that.
and of course, they have the piers there from,
Right, but those are over far, those are over
The
farther.
easement, I mean, it's still on the other, well, I mean, it's a permanent easement.
Correct.
but I think, like I said, I think there's a gate coming off. There's two gates there, one coming off of the road and then one coming into the property there too. And I can't imagine, I questions, Ms. Marshall.
I just say that my issue is more the setback from the lake, particularly since it's a brand new property and it's not an original footprint. We're sort of stuck with that a little bit. It doesn't, that's always an issue with original footprint. Not that I'm a fan of that, it just is what the planning commission gives us to do, but that's where my hesitation is. And that easement I'm less familiar with than you guys, but I can see how trying to bring those boat lifts in through there, if that's that's existing. I don't know what kind of driveway you could put in, if someone's crossing that all the time, or that could be an issue.
I think they were wanting to put some kind of a gate in there that probably has an automatic thing. I don't know.
No, I'm just saying crossing somebody's driveway, whether it's,
I agree.
Gravel or there could be destruction to it. That's what I'm
That was
saying.
part of the deal.
Yeah, then that could be, everybody's all friendly. That could be an issue.
It is this easement, this hanging to use from one lot to the other, is it other? It's an easement that somebody else can use.
It's a private, no, it's a private right. It
Ingress
belongs to the King property, which is just back here. King's on this. Parcel. So where the easement is, it belongs to the King.
Okay, and if they were to sell this property,
It runs with the land.
it runs with the land.
Yeah, it's called an ingress and egress easement. You have an easement to go in and out.
Okay, that's what I want to make sure it's not.
Yeah, but it runs with the land.
To it, say on the own.
No,
King property.
no, it runs.
Well, and then I don't know when the easement was given so they could bring stuff in because it was a marina. Now using it as a driveway on a daily basis, I think I'm not saying it's not legal, but it's two different things, bringing some equipment in and bringing it in is a whole lot different than pulling cars in.
Time. I mean, okay, but
I
have provide your gas for ingress and egress.
What doesn't require permission is what you're saying?
That's
things are online, listen, so they'll probably listen on
certify
that.
that for me. Yeah. Yeah, my only other issues I just got too is home.
my response that this is a classic case of a true practical difficulty. Without a variance of some setbacks on this property basically could never be used.
not done, say after you've done it, yeah, you're even negotiating it.
Mhm.
If they've got the two homes, the square footage that necessarily not be. No, square footage protection or not. I know you figure in areas you input this. Anything done with.
Well, as with all the because that's solid concrete now.
Right, and
That's
it's
correct.
gonna be taken
That's correct.
out.
So obviously they're gonna have to get some grass there or are
That's
they
our
gonna?
desire. Our desire is to clean it up and make it look decent and not be like it's been since 1964.
No, taking.
Yes.
So like you said before, it could be moved back 10 feet. So how does that change the setback if that was done?
Well, on the triangle, I'm sure it would help it. I'm not sure.
Well, I would be interested to know what the setback from the lake would be if that was done.
One side would be about 16 to 17 feet.
On the setback,
You're just sliding this down. If you
right?
the whole length of this, what 10 feet would be, the 10 foot would be somewhere around this. Yeah.
So I was just looking at between the, just taking that 20 and sliding it up to the middle of that, and change it. So you think that the end there on the south end is going to be 16 to 17, or don't you think it'd be a little bit more than that? I don't know.
I don't think so. If it's right at 15 now, that point, we're gonna move it down to right about where that first deck is right there. If you
Yeah,
look at the footage yourself.
right.
It's gonna be one parallel with the building.
You're saying if you. Did you get more clearance?
I mean. Still yet, in the taking that, we went parallel with the road, and that is going to gain from the lake. If you go with the lake line, and straight back to it.
I think you'd have to make the house smaller to get more clearance from the lake. You
I
know,
understand.
Because on the original plan, there was the 25-foot setback from the lake,
Yes.
right?
Yes. But
But then you were right up next to the road.
yeah, that put us close to the road.
Right.
Any more questions, Ms. Marshall? Mr. Osmond? Mr. Manaway? Good. Do you have anything you'd like to add?
Brand new property, it's a brand new house. Take the 416 square feet out of the garage, move it 10 feet to the north, you're much more compliant than you are. We want to maintain the 20 feet off of the lake, and that's what needs to be done. My opinion, I would tell you not to pass it.
Say it again.
Now, my recommendation is forward.
Said take the garage.
We have a garage. Garage is
Right now, this doesn't have a garage?
No,
It does.
460 feet of garage on that south end.
Living over the garage.
Yeah.
Right now, this is just lines on paper. Somebody could make lines on the paper work a lot better than this is.
And then truthful comment here. And I said this at one time to each other. Both properties are sure they made one lot and it merged the other house. And be much more beneficial than putting a separate house there. But that's not nothing that I'm recommending. I just think that there would be something that would be considered, but okay. And I'll see what anybody here have anything they'd like to add before I open it up to those online. And again, anybody that's want to talk on Zoom or just phone, please let us know who you are and your address, and that would help for the secretary. So I'm opening up any comments from those who are with us electronically. Mrs. Osborne, I think you had something you want to. Well, Mrs. Osborne's one was started to talk before.
Yes. Sorry, I tried to speak too early. I just wondered if, I know there's been some written correspondence from residents of West Shore Circle, and I'm just curious if those, if that written correspondence was copied so that all members of the board was able to see that.
I'm sorry, first of all, could you just tell me your name and give me your address, please?
Yes, Diane Osborne, and it's 18171 West Shore Circle.
Thank you. And you say you sent a letter?
Well, I mean, it wasn't just me. I know there's been written correspondence submitted, and I was hoping that the correspondence that was submitted was copied so everyone on the board could read it. And I know, considering my comments from my correspondence, one of my concerns is that access, I know it's used by Gary Schaefer, but it's also used by the residents. So the residents use that for entry and retrieval of their canoes, their kayaks. When children on the hill take down their water toys or whatever, they use that. That's where they go in. If people have dogs that they're water playing in at the end of the day when there's no one on the pier, that's where they go. So my concern is that cars crossing over that access, when all these years, nobody's, you know, and especially kids have been not used to cars pulling back and forth out of the street into that area. And, you know, if Gary's using it, it's not while it's full of people down there. It's, you know, either early in the morning or, you know, late afternoon. And I'm just very concerned because people are not used to cars, you know, using that as an access route. And then the other thing that last summer I observed after the Cooks had purchased the property is that that's a very busy, congested area. You know, where their abutment is on their property, the fence line that runs along the road for West Shore Circle that encloses our area, it's almost right on the road. And there's no road berm like from the West Shore Circle enclosed area down to the public boat landing. There's a place for vehicles to pull off there, and if they have to pass. Well, and people noticed last year that if Cooks were coming or going, all of the traffic has to stop. Someone has to get out of the car that's trying to access that property. They have to open the gate while all the traffic is lined up, waiting on them to get the gate open before they can even enter into the property, which is I think it's a huge detriment for the safety because of the traffic that's lined up. And also, that's at the exact point where people are coming across from West Shore Circle, either from the, the property itself or from the parking area that West Shore Circle has across the street. So people are walking back and forth, kids are walking back and forth there. And so now it's going to turn into basically a traffic hazard because of the, people walking back and forth in cars coming and going. So I had put that in my letter, and I had hoped that that was going to be distributed to everyone on the board. So I don't know where it is or where it went to, but anyway, and I know there were a couple other letters of concern from residents on West Shore Circle too. So I don't know where they are, but I was kind of hoping that every board member would have a copy to read that, just to enable to justify what our concerns are for that area, that small congested area right there on the curve.
I do have two letters here from the October meeting, from one from Nancy Baker and one from Emily King. That's the only two letters I do have.
Okay, well, mine should be there somewhere because it is, does the one letter particularly address the issues I just spoke about?
No, I don't. I mean, I've been looking for a letter from you, and we usually put them in. I don't know, and I don't remember reading it in October, but unless it would, I don't know.
Well, the letter I submitted would have been after the last meeting.
After the October meeting,
Right.
let me see if there's anything in November section then.
But it was basically just trying to give a visual scenario of what goes on right there at that location concerning the West Shore Circle residents and their activity back and forth across the road and entering there and using that access drive down to the lake, which it's going to be very different if now people are trying to be concerned with cars that are using that for a drive, because they've never had to be concerned about that, and especially kids. And it's just because, like I said, people up on the circle, they use that for their water toys too, taking them in and out of the lake. And if people have younger kids, I mean, the piers, are too high for little toddlers. So they take them down the ramp, and they didn't let them walk in the water right there and put them on their little rafts and float them around. And so I think that access gets used greatly by the residents. But that's why I was hoping that those concerns would be, not just listening to me, but I had visually, put them in writing so people could see them.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I cannot find a copy. I keep looking, and the only two letters I have. I don't have, it didn't say anything in minutes that we read a letter. And we tabled it after that, and I don't think we brought it up again.
Okay.
So I'm sorry about that, Mrs. Osmond.
Okay.
But,
and again, it's a really congested area. And then when you have to stop traffic and someone has to get out of the car to open the gate, so the car can go in and out.
Yeah, and I have no idea what they're, and that definitely is something we need to consider. You're right.
And also, like I said, it's basically a pedestrian walkway straight over there to get into the West Shore Circle property, so people can access the pier and the boats. So there's a lot going on right there at that intersection on the highway at those properties. It's just a converging of a lot of confusion right there.
Right.
And it's so busy there in the summer because of the public boat landing and all of these trucks and trailers, and a lot of times the trucks and the trailers will pull up there, and there's not even any room to pull up, so they pull along the embankment or the chain link fence for West Shore Circle to either drain their boats or readjust their lights, or so then there's only one lane of traffic there. I mean, it's parked full. The lane in the roadway is actually parked full, and so the cars from the north or south will have to take turns in order to pass to get by on that congested area right there if
That's
there's a
definitely- Yeah, that's definitely something we're going to be looking at.
okay,
And I think probably we have a couple other people that might want to make comments here, so if you
Okay.
go ahead, Ryan.
okay, thank you.
Okay, this is Emily King, 18151 West Shore Circle.
Okay,
And-
Emily.
Hello there. I underscore everything that Diane said, and she said it well. I wanted to make sure that everyone understands that the easement that is available to the Cooks is for ingress and egress only. They don't have use of the ramp at all. It is just from the county road to get into their property. That's it. And I was wondering if by any chance Mr. Easterday has been out recently, or has any board member come out to look at the easement to see what the heck we're talking about?
I've been by there looking at it. Yeah.
So,
Yeah, Mr. Easterday, he has also. And there are two gates there, right,
Yes,
Emily?
yes, there are two gates. There's one that is along the road, and then there is one that would go into the Cook property. There's one that's parallel to West Shore Drive, and then there's the one that goes into the Cook property, which would be perpendicular to West Shore Drive. I guess that's right. Mr. Math teacher, is that right?
Yes. Very good. Yeah.
Well, let me see. There were some other things. Oh, are there new drawings that you people are looking at today?
Yes, it's a scale down from what we had before.
Okay. I just feel like it might have been maybe not required, but considerate for some of us along here to have had access to those new drawings. It's a little hard to know what we're talking about when we don't have anything to look at here. I didn't know that those would be available or what was going on. So that would have been helpful. And I guess nothing has been brought up again that here again, this was sold as an unbuildable lot. Had it been sold as a buildable lot, there might have been more people interested in buying that lot. How far from the road is the house? Because
As with the new drawing, it will be 18 feet to the gutter at its nearest point to the road.
18 feet to what?
To the gutter,
Oh,
that's not to the edge of the house, it's to the edge of the gutter, or the overhang, yes.
okay.
And the nearest point to the lake is 15 feet. Again, to the overhang.
So is the house just going to be skinnier then?
Well, that's what I was trying to look at.
Are they gonna be
Well, no, it says it's still the same
square footage?
square footage. It's not any, from the original drawing that we have from October, it's the very same, actually, it says the very same square footage. 1,308 square feet and 1,740, the two floors.
Okay. I guess I don't understand that if you're giving up
Closer to the
some of
lake.
the,
They moved the house closer to the lake last time. They had it set back 25 feet from the lake. This time, and it was much closer to the road, about 3 feet from the road. This time they just moved they moved it closer to the lake. That's what, that's,
It was actually 20 feet from the
or
lake.
20 feet, sorry.
okay, I get it now, or sort of. Okay. And of course, nothing's been brought up about the gas tank that's on the underground there. Is that going to be a problem or not?
It's an environmental issue. It's a building issue, not a zoning issue.
Yeah.
And yes, that will be addressed before they put anything in the ground.
But that doesn't come to us. That's environmental.
Okay. And have the Cooks mentioned anything about making their own driveway off of West Shore Drive?
I believe the Cooks are, they're not here, just Mr. Easterday is here, but I think Mrs. Cook is online, so she might have a comment here on that.
Okay, this is Kim Cook and we are online. We have very intermittent service, so not everything that you've said has been very clear. So if you could restate the question.
Mrs. King was wondering if you had considered having an own, rather than going through the, one of the big things we're talking about here, Mrs. Cook, is the using the King property to go get to your garage. There's actually 2 gates that would have to be used. And what Mrs. King was asking is if you'd considered putting your own driveway in.
Well, I think that it depends, and I don't have that print in front of me. I think if I recall correctly where the print is, there's not a lot of room left to put a driveway in. And I did hear some concerns about the drive. I 100% am not an engineer. However, I do think that the safest place to have a drive is across from another street. That's a sign could be put there for a crosswalk or whatever, but I think it's safer to be directly across from an egress than it is to be catty corner or to have several of them. I mean, I want it to be known, we want to do what is ever safe. I mean, we have 8 grandkids under 6. We're all 100% about safety. And, you know, if the perpendicular gate to the lake is a hindrance, I'm sure there's something that can be done about that. We obviously don't have any control over the gate that is parallel to the road, but the gate that is perpendicular to the lake, we absolutely, if that's a hindrance, can remove that.
But that doesn't answer Mrs. King's question. She was wondering if.
I don't think there's room there to be able to do that. That is at such a height. By the time you brought in a ramp, I don't think that there's physically room to put one in there.
Not if you go 20 feet from the north side. Possibly if you moved it to 10 feet on the north side, the side yard setback of 10 feet, there might be room. I have no idea, but that's definitely a concern. And I agree with Ms. Osmond when she said that stretch of road along there on weekends is absolutely ridiculous to try to get through because of the traffic and because of the access to the lake and the amount of vehicles that are there. I think it's a very dangerous situation. So,
But I would just say that egress is already there. I mean, that's not something that we're adding.
But it's not, and I agree, but it's not a egress that's used on a daily basis. When you
Well,
step
I
on,
mean, I guess it depends. I mean, they're saying that people are walking down there every day and Gary uses it for in and out for the docks. So, I mean, how much are we going to add to that? I don't think it's going to be a very big amount.
Well, what Gary uses is very seasonal.
I'm sorry, is that Ms. King?
Yeah, I mean, we use it as a seasonal home. I mean, we've probably been there in the amount of time that we've owned it. We've probably been there maybe 10 times.
And of course, that is the season that it's busiest there in that area. Okay,
Well,
any other, Mrs. Cook,
yep.
any questions or comments?
My only other comment to that is that if we come there and use that property, we're talking a difference of 100 feet. I mean, we are going to stay, we have to park somewhere. So the place that we park, the lot across the street it can range anywhere from 10 feet to probably 100 feet. So the difference of us coming in and out, whether it be in that egress, which probably is safer because there is a cross street, or between 20 and 100 feet further, I'm not 100% sure on the direction, but whether, I mean, the number of times that we come in and out is going to be the same no matter where the drive is. So I don't know that really is affecting the safety issue.
Well, and what we're talking about there, though, is the fact that that is gated. There are 2 gates there right now, which makes it much more hazardous. Somebody have to open the gate or even wait for a gate to open to get in, rather than pulling in and out. I think it does make a difference.
Okay. Like I said, I'm not an engineer. I'm just, and the one gate can easily be eliminated.
Well, this is Emily again, but if it's eliminated, then what keeps, I mean, it would seem to me like the dogs are going to come across. The little ones will wander. I don't know if you can eliminate, or well, I guess it's your property, but it doesn't seem very wise to me to eliminate the gate entirely.
I mean, it's a neighborhood. I mean, neighbors don't generally have gates anyway.
No.
That'd be good. Get more.
That easement.
Yeah, we need to.
And I think we need to move on here. Anybody else from the call-ins or people online have any comments or questions? We need to
Yes,
proceed.
I've got,
Pardon me?
yes, this is Diane Osborne again. And
Hey, Diane.
and my comment is that it's not like one neighbor to one neighbor. The property is being utilized with many different neighbors. So it's many different people, many different sets of kids, many different pets, many different, it's not like you've just got one neighbor and you're not going to put up a fence because it's one neighbor, but this is an actual, like a beach area that has been there for years, that has been, that's one of the perks to living on West Shore Circle, is that that's accessible to all of the residents up there. And it was fenced in so that it would be private and secure and secluded, to designate it as one of the perks of living up there on the hill. So it's not like you have to deal with just one family to one family. There's going to be one family on one side, but many different families that are utilizing the basically the little West Shore Circle Resort area there, whether it's the piers or the boats or the ramp where people can come and go. So that's my comment to that. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Okay, if I'm hearing you correctly, you're basically saying you'd be interested in knowing whether or not it's feasible to move that house to the north. What would be feasible with the garage? What the situation is with, is that where we are?
Yes.
Okay. You're amenable to moving forward with me asking you to table it and see what we can get. So do that.
Okay. And I would definitely like to investigate moving it to the north, and that would be a little more pleasing. Okay, so we're tabling this. Do you want to,
Jim,
table it to the next?
I really think the architect really needs to take a look at this, and because you're trying to put this shape into like a triangle. They could make it, they move it to the north and turn it and then turn part of the house. You might be able to come real close to all the setbacks.
Okay.
I really, if you're looking at this dimensions and all this stuff, and I think that we can make that work. It might not be the exact same design that they have here, but I suggest.
We want to table that to the 15th of April rather than the 4th or the 1st.
I definitely don't want to do it first because I got to go back to the architect.
Oh, that's true.
Based upon what you're saying, that may be, and I may ask you to continue the next one depending upon what he.
Or he comes up, yeah.
Table day, April 15th, and then we'll go from there. Hey, Mr. Easterday, you're on again.
Okay, this is the Loyal Wilson property. And at his request, I'm giving you some documents. And then he has a presentation, I believe, that he would like to make to you. Online, living on the trouble.
Jim, I am on the line. Good evening, everybody. I thought I'd be up a little bit earlier, but I really appreciate the time this afternoon, and I appreciate your including us on the agenda for this meeting. In addition to Jim, who of course is representing me, I have Chad Leap on the phone from Easterday Construction. And Chad has helped immensely with the drawings and the plans for the building that we would like to amend. And I invited him here to be a resource in case members of the commission have any questions of him. You'll recall that we presented at the October meeting, and it was a very good discussion. And we presented a packet at that time. I hope you all have that packet available to you today, in addition to the material that Jim just circulated. Could somebody confirm whether that first package is also there? I just want to know what I'm speaking to.
I have my first packet. I don't know if everybody else does.
Okay,
I don't.
Great. Well, we can speak from the new one. The first packet that we presented in October had architectural drawings for the outbuilding on the back of the property. And I think they were important in terms of assuring people of the architectural integrity of the building that we hope to complete. It also included a photo of the back building itself surrounded by water, which highlights the issue of mold that we're trying to redress. But let me back up for a minute, and I'll speak mostly from the new package when we get to it. In terms of some background on myself and the property, my mother's family is from a farm just north of Logansport, Indiana, 5 miles north, And she came here as a child. I've been coming to Culver for 73 years. So I guess most of my life so far. Initially, we were renters, and then sometime in the 1970s, my mother purchased this house to have space for her children. She had remarried to Ed Becker, who lives on the lake. But my mother purchased the property in the late 70s or early 80s. I couldn't find the date for this meeting. She passed away in 1991, leaving the cottage to my sisters and to me. So we've owned it for 40 years in this generation, and the ownership structure has changed somewhat. The family structure has also evolved. In addition to 3 sisters, my wife and I have 4 daughters, and we'll soon have 6 grandchildren, age 3 and below. And our children, 1 lives in Chicago and 3 live on the East Coast, but they all enjoy coming to Culver at the same time. The other history on the house that I think is relevant is that the original house had a fire in 1998. And the home itself was a 100-plus-year-old home. And the fire damage was extensive enough that it just wasn't wise to rebuild. So we wasn't wise to try to renovate. So we did a rebuild in 1999. And in doing that rebuild, I don't know if you have a photo of the property in front of you, but most of you would know it as a house. It's the first house in the lane, and it has a big side yard with great vistas of the lake. And when you're on the lake looking towards the house, it of course has that same side yard with open vistas going back. But when we rebuilt it, we did it as a family property to accommodate a large family. We included a large screen porch, which is traditional on the lake, and a bunk room on the 2nd floor, evoking the spirit of the older cottages. I thought that background might be useful. I don't want to belabor the points, but we've been at the lake for a long time. We have great respect for our Indiana lake and farm heritage. And our treatment of the property, I think, reflects that. The first page of the document that Jim passed out is a survey. And of note on that survey, the original home, before we rebuilt it, was within 4 feet of the lot line. So it basically had the same setback from the south lot line as the garage does today. And when we did the rebuild, we repositioned it. We wanted to alleviate the lot line. And although I think we would have been permitted to rebuild in the same spot under the then current zoning regs, if we kept with the footprint, but we thought it was better aesthetics and we'd be better neighbors if we moved it and positioned it properly. We also preserved the large side yard that I referred to the north to provide play space for us, and also to preserve the sight lines and the scenic vistas that I think are so important to the community of Culver. Now, the building we're here to discuss is the outbuilding, and that predates our family's ownership. Our guess is that it's somewhere between 80 and 100 years old. Over that period of time prior to our ownership, it had various usages we can divine as a garage for storage, and it also had a small bedroom and bath, which we believe was maintained for a cook or a housekeeper back in the day when people lived that way. We use it for storage and garage space, and we also use it for overflow with a bed and a bath. Let me find my own side. Looking at this survey for a moment, we of course presented a survey at the October meeting, and we had we had the survey firm redo it to be responsive of questions from the committee. Their previous survey seemed to be unclear as to the descriptions of the lots themselves. But as you can see on this one, which I think is much clearer, we own lot 1 and lot 2. We also own the south 75 feet of lot 6. And we own the north 1/2 lot of lot 7. As you can see, the building in the back does cross over the lot line between lot 2 and lot 7. And that, that's just an historical accident. Honestly, you may have more insight as to how these lot lines were drawn than I do. But I've never been able to divine it. And we understand that one of the goals of the committee has been, when possible, to encourage consolidation of lots into single lots. And we would intend to do that if we get approval for the renovation that we'd like to do for the rear cottage. I'm running out of battery, so I'm going to plug in for a minute. I also didn't realize I had my Zoom off. I think I'm on now. I don't know if that helps my case or hurts it, but here I am. Pardon? Probably,
Not have Zoom on, so we can't look at your mugshot.
Yeah.
there you go. Well, here I am. This is what you get. This is a winter growth, and I'm not sure it will survive all the way to Culver. But the reason why we're here today is to request approval to remediate a mold issue and to request that we be permitted to extend the building 12 feet to the north away from the lot line. And as I mentioned earlier on this survey sheet, we did it to provide clarity in terms of the lot lines and where the building resides. The other thing we wanted to make clear is that the addition is really a 12 by 18 addition. And of course, the porch is extended as well. So it is not a very large addition. And unfortunately, this survey does not show it, but the material we had for our October meeting will show that this extension would be accommodated entirely within the current landscaping and hardscaping pattern, so that the pathway from the house, which curves back to the garage, the addition would be entirely inside that pathway. So we wouldn't be making major changes to the landscaping. And I think importantly, we're not making any changes to the scenic vista. We're not impinging on anybody's view in proposing this addition. A couple of elements, very first step before we came to propose doing the addition is we consulted with our neighbors. We have Jim Starr on the south we have Dan Starr on the south and Jim Henderson to the north. And they both have had an opportunity to review our initial package. I've spoken to them individually, and they both expressed support for what we are doing. And actually, that it's somewhat in keeping with what Jim Henderson did years ago in the back of his property for the same family-oriented reason.
Mr. Wilson?
Yes, sir.
Can we proceed on? I've been looking at the drawings we have, and that's our main interest here.
Okay.
I mean, yes, we are concerned about your neighbors and how you get along with your neighbors. But the only thing I see you have changed is you've included a bonus room on top of what you proposed before.
Well, I'm glad you raised that because that's actually not what we were doing with this slide. We wanted to be responsive to suggestions made by committee members that we explore other alternatives to doing the addition.
Well, I'll refer to my suggestion last time you were here. My comment was, I would love to see you move the garage away from the, if you're going to replace it, move it away from the south line. But I'm not in favor of adding another room and then a bonus room on top to boot. What you're coming back with here is actually more than what you were asking for before.
No,
Actually, Mr. Adam, actually, Jim, you might help out with that.
with all due
You're in the
respect,
room.
they asked at the previous meeting, they asked if you would explore different possibilities, and that was to show that we cannot do it. That's not going to be part of the project. The only reason that was put in there was to show that the heights don't work.
Oh, it's not a.
No, it's not part of
No,
the project.
no. The purpose of that slide is entirely to show that we were responsive to the committee member who made the suggestion that that was a viable alternative. And I had Chad Leap to have his staff do a feasibility, just look if it was reasonable. And we can't do it under the height limit. And we do not think it would be aesthetically a good way to go for our community. So we're not proposing to do that. But I just thought it was respectful to try to address the issues that were raised in October.
But the issues that I raised have not been addressed. As I see it, it's the very same point then.
I'm sorry, I can't hear you entirely.
I'm sorry?
I couldn't, it broke up in
I
terms
said-
of your voice.
And see, it's the very same drawing as you had before. I see no change from the previous drawing. It's not addressing anything that I had concern about. My concern was to move the thing and not have extra living space out there.
I was trying to address suggestions from all the members of the committee. And Mr. Adams, I hope I can swing your view in this presentation. You know, I also want to address your concerns.
And I don't understand. If I was against it before, presenting me with the very same drawing, very same proposal you had before is not going to influence me. I mean,
it's different. It's different in two ways. One is we came back with more detail on the survey. And number two, we made it clear that it is not just an addition of a room because the porch is part of it. So it's even less intrusive than we were suggesting before. The picture of the house, if you can see that, with the side yard, the reason why we did that and why the other photos are in there is because another suggestion was that we could simply attach it to the house itself. So I had Chad Leap, or again, I asked him to take a look at the viability of that. And by going into the side yard, we impinge on the scenic vistas. And we also, I think there's a picture from the interior of the house, we would block all of our views from the kitchen and the dining room out to the lake. And, you know,
Yeah, Mr. Wilson, I
Yes, sir.
appreciate what you're saying here. I know why you put the pictures there. I'm saying that nothing has changed in this drawing from what you presented to us in October or whatever the date was. And the third question on our variance request is the strict application of the terms of the zoning ordinance will result in practical difficulties in the use of the property. I see you have quite a bit of property there, and I think some changes could be made. Yes, it might take away your view, but if you want more, you need more room, sometimes you have to give a few things up. And I'm sorry, we have zoning ordinances for a reason. And if you're not gonna make any changes, I feel like I'm wasting my time here. This is the same thing we went through before.
And,
Yeah.
talking about the use. I know, application here, we're talking about proposed addition on the garage house. Is what's on the print. And we talked about this at the last meeting, that by increasing the size of the garage and guest house, would actually be increasing the use of a non-allowed use of a accessory structure. So unless that changes, I mean, there's no way this proposal not be clear.
Mr. DeWitt?
This garage as it stands today is a legal, non-conforming structure. Once it is altered or changed in any way, it has to meet today's code. By meeting code means there's no living quarters in there, there's no anything in there. We're not adding another residence. Right, this is a legal, non-conforming structure of record. And as it is, it can stand until it goes away. Once it goes away, and it is changed or altered in any way, it has to meet all applicable codes.
Did you hear that, Mr. Wilson?
I heard it, but I assume that we still have the ability to remediate for mold.
That's right, you do. But you cannot enlarge it. That's the thing we're talking about.
The variance that we were requesting is, actually, you won't like the term, but we might as well, enjoy the evening. It is a, it would be a compliant, well, it's a non-compliant structure, but it would be an addition that does not put it further into non-compliance. It doesn't intrude on the lot line, and it doesn't create another structure.
But you're increasing the size of it.
And increasing the use.
And increasing the use of it.
The use is the bigger issue.
Well, the overall purpose, when you go to the preamble of the zoning regs are, one provides for growth, another provides for health and well-being of families. And, I can't think of anything better for well-being of a family than young family and their children to be able to be together back there.
And like I suggested, you have plenty of room to add on to the house. And it's not adding on to in a non-conforming building or building on the lot is not the solution as far as I'm concerned. If you need more adding on to the house, is the direction you're going to have to go.
What
and I can only speak for myself.
What I took that to be is an instruction to explore adding onto the house. We have photos to show why that is impractical from an aesthetic and an architectural standpoint. And the irony, I think, is in terms of the views for the community and the lake are more intact with a small addition to the garage than they are with our intruding on that side yard.
Yes, we need to move on here. Does anybody else online like to comment on this? We need to proceed because we have more things to go with.
Have a good evening, everybody.
Okay.
Jim, I couldn't hear. How do we wrap this up?
I think they're going to take a vote at this point in time.
We're moving to finding of facts.
Could we table it?
Do that before we do finding the facts.
You want to do that before we?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Yes, we will table it.
it then.
Yeah, because I don't think it's gonna pass, Mr. Wilson.
Oh, I hear you. The, I was hopeful that the presentation would resonate with more of the committee members. Mr. Adams, you're a strong chair. You took a strong position. And I recognize that.
Well, it's not just me. There's only four, two of us have spoken against it already, which means only there's two that haven't expressed yes or no. So, and it has to pass with three. So I think it's wise in tabling it. We need to move on. And we will table this.
Okay. I do want to assure you that, number one, we've been entirely upfront on this all the way through.
And I appreciate.
And, you know, we respect the committee and we respect the lake.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I don't like the answer, but but I'm happy to have it tabled. You have another item to cover, so I shouldn't take your airtime.
Thank you, sir.
Third item we have is a lakeside structure on the property of Mrs. Green. I have Mrs. Green here, and I have her son and daughter-in-law here. And basically, we are asking to put what I would consider a fancy gazebo with the toilet connected to the city on the lakeside. We need a variance to do that because it would be in the front yard. The size of the structure would be 14 by 28. And if you have any questions about what it looks like, and we can answer those, I have the architect here, Robert, here, and she can explain what the project is.
Basically, it's a lakeside,
The clerk came in a minute ago and told me he couldn't hear you, so that's why I'm here.
Can you, before you start, could you just give me your name?
Lori Roberts
Lori, and you,
Roberts
in
in Rochester.
Rochester. Okay.
So we would like to put a pavilion down by the lake where there are already arborvitae trees, and it's all a private enclosed part of the lake, which is unusual. And it's a lot of steps up to the house from the lake. So the Greens wanted to put this place for their family to gather, kind of doing it in it as a memorial to Gaby's sister, who tragically passed away at a young age last year. And, it doesn't interrupt anyone's view, and we're trying to make it look historically. We had a newer design. I don't know if you guys have that, but we kind of had a newer design that went along with the history of the house. I don't know if everybody's been to see the
Same size as the other one.
same size. We just changed the design a little bit so that it's more, kind of picks up the historical aspects of the house, which is, I think, in 1895. Is that right, Diane? A simple structure. The brick would match the house. The copper would match the guttering and the roof, the bay window roof on the house. And, basically, it's a 14 by 28, and just a place where you could come off the lake and stop and gather, and that's about it.
The one thing that struck me when I went out there was, number one, I was surprised that it's as enclosed as it is. And number two, I was surprised at the difference in topography going from the lake to their front porch. The rise there is just absolutely incredible. This gives it a stopping off point.
I think it's 13 steps down from the house down to the lake, so it doesn't interrupt anyone's view at all. I think Did we measure the trees? The trees are like,
About 11, 10.5 to 11 feet, depending on the.
yeah.
But you can't see it when people walk by on a trail, they can't look over and see in that area anyways.
One of the reasons that I went down and took pictures, because I always do, but secondly, I wanted to see what the sight line would be from the properties to the two sides. And if you notice, the property from the, what I call the west side, or it could be the south side, depending on how you look at the lake, they can't see anything. Everything, their sight line is right across the top. And the immediate property to the north, ironically, was sold by I think Mr. Green, right? You folks sell that property?
No.
The previous landowners sold it to the little, there's a little 19-foot square, which is really nothing more than a lake access point to a pier that's on the beach lodge side of it. And I stood in the middle of that and looked across the property. And as long as you're looking at the lake, you're not looking across the property. Because of the way the lake ends in there, the sight line, there would be nothing in that area that would knock the sight line.
Currently, there's a very large
Yeah.
bush there that blocks the view right
And
away.
there's a 7-foot cover unit anyway.
It's going to be, not going to be a question if you realize how massive this is in terms of what the ordinance is, in terms of what the ordinance actually requires.
This is Ms. Marshall, what is, I can't hear you.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was looking at Jim and I was saying, you do understand how massive this is in terms of what the ordinances actually
Sure.
require.
Well, if you're talking about the 30-inch height, I agree with you. Because I will never understand the ordinance in that regard. I think that's something that we looked at in plan commission, and I think it's going to have to be reviewed, because I think the ordinance has an oxymoron in it, in that it says in front yard you can do things like gazebos and boathouses, etc. But then in a different place in the ordinance it says can't be more than 30 inches tall. It doesn't make any sense, and I brought that up several times, and quite frankly, the answer I usually get is, well, we just want to look at them, just not going to give anybody any trouble.
Right. I think in this particular case, this was also right down by the lake.
Yeah.
And
Then set out where there's nothing supposed to be as far as that.
yeah.
Well, it's in the front yard. Anything in the front yard.
You do got 25-foot setback.
So this one is way out next to the lake. So it's not, it doesn't have a setback to it, but then it's also.
Is there an easement for that trail? How is that handled?
I believe that there is an easement through there for the trail. To be totally candid with you, I thought I wrote it, but I couldn't find it back in 1975. I did find a survey of it when I researched the deed, but I believe there's an easement in there. You and I are old enough to remember.
And that was railroad property, correct?
Yes. See, there used to be a viaduct in there, right there at the end of Washington Street. When I was a kid, we used to try and not fall off of it. And the golf truck used to go into the beach lodge through that viaduct. And I know that when they bulldozed the railroad right of way, they wanted to maintain the ability to get in there with vehicles or with pedestrian traffic. And that's where it's at. There is a Paul Tice, I believe it is, I wouldn't swear to it. Plymouth Land Survey, I found in the records, a survey of the easement. And so that's where it comes from. But it's an easement. The land is actually owned by this.
So it's all one lot,
Yes.
is what you're saying. So
Yes.
there's not two separate lots because
Two
of
separate
this
lots.
is.
This is the front yard of the lot.
So we're talking about the structure being how far from easement cars the trail?
Well, how's there other boat houses on the lake?
There's lots of stuff.
How far would
I
that?
really don't want to get
How far would
in
that
line,
be?
because there's a lot of stuff on the lake, boat houses, and stuff like that, that
It's only
should
about.
have never been done prior to ordinance. Because I wouldn't try to be rude to you.
No, I understand.
I just want to let people know that, and we have a, you know, each case has to look at individually, not for the president. So it needs to be a hard case.
It would set right inside the fence. Yeah, there's a white fence. Did you see that? Here you go. Just that inside the. No, that's that.
I got a question for you. Where would this runoff go from this pavilion?
We were thinking that we would just have a guttering system. We haven't totally worked it out, but we're only.
Because you're not gonna run it away. That's not gonna happen.
Yeah. We can.
Yeah,
but
the
we
environmental
haven't really-
people will go nuts.
We haven't really worked it out yet, but we could take any recommendations as to, if we had to come under the pathway with it. We plan on having gutters and.
We do have 2 letters that we received on this. And I've asked the secretary if she would read them. We will have those on file also. Do you want to go ahead and do that, Ms. Marshall?
The first letter is from Lindsay Wheeler from 411 East Washington Street, apartment number 12, written March 14th of this year. Dear BZA board members, I am writing this letter to express my opposition to Mr. and Mrs. Green's proposed building structure located at 303 State Street. I strongly disagree with allowing this variance to be approved. The local ordinance calls for the building structure not to exceed 30 inches in height. The proposed structure requested by the Greens is 12.5 feet. This is a vast difference of 10 feet in height. This proposed building structure is much larger in square footage and is allowable per the ordinance. In addition, the proposed fence is a foot taller and solid. Again, vastly different from the 5-foot opaque fence allowable. This proposed building is in a very visible part of our community. This will not just affect the neighbors, but everyone who walks along the path. People come from all over to enjoy this path and views of the lake. This building structure would directly hinder the views along the path. In addition, it would set a precedent that other homeowners along the path could do the same thing. As an owner at Culver condominiums just to the west of this proposed building structure, I do not want this next door complex. We strive to keep our property open and natural as we are also along the walking path. It is in the best interest of all of us along the path. Take the best care of our property as this is what visitors see. The goal should be minimalistic and natural. This proposed building goes directly against what is best for our lakeside. Thank you for taking the time to read this letter. Please do not hesitate to contact me. The phone number or email listed above. If you have any questions, thank you. It's signed Lindsay Wheeler. The next letter is from Kim Kearns. This was an email, so I don't have an address. It's actually from Anthony and Kimberly Kearns. To all the board members of the BZA, in regards to the variance at 303 State Street owned by Diane Green, we strongly oppose any type of building structure in the 6-foot high solid fencing that is requested. The proposed building of 14 feet by 28 feet is within inches of the pedestrian path. The Stellar Grant project is all about the thousands of visitors to Culver enjoying a beautiful pathway. Having a brick building and wall 12 feet 6 inches high is obstructing the natural beauty of the lake. This is not an accessory storage unit of 30 inches high that is allowed on a piece of lakeside property that is approximately 20 inches deep. This is approximately the square footage and height of a 2-car garage. The 6-foot solid fencing is an obstruction of our view of the lake. We own the deck directly to the east of the proposed fence. We will also obstruct our airflow as we enjoy the breezes from the water on a hot summer day. The whole lower area is scheduled to be covered in paving blocks. 100% of hardscape on the lower bank, thus having no green space, will not allow for drainage. This project is also setting precedents for all property owners on this area of the lake. We do not want to see the starting point of the walking path set off by a tall brick building. This is not a beautification of our lake or our town. Respectfully, Carnes.
Just one thing, Ms. Marshall, I think you said 20 inches.
Oh, sorry,
Should be 20 feet.
20 feet, sorry.
There's no mark there.
Yeah, sorry.
I'm sure that's
Yeah,
what they're
20
talking
feet,
about.
okay.
And the walls would only be 8 feet high, it would just be 12.6 to the peak of the roof. Not like you have a 12.5-foot brick wall in your face.
And we also plan on painting ivy to be on the back wall, brick around it.
Currently, right now, there's 14 foot high. The ordinance restrictions.
So now I have to
I'm glad that you brought that up. Thank you for doing that.
They actually go all the way down to that brick, all white brick.
Excuse me, I've got it. According to our zoning ordinance, chapter 6, article 070, fences, hedges, and walls. That's not allowed then.
This is not our property.
We're talking about your property, nothing else. You're the one that asked for this. What?
It's allowed.
30 inches. And it's got to be 50% opaque to look through there. How are you going to do that with those trees?
They've been there since you bought the house.
Were they there before this ordinance? No. Otherwise, the trees would be taller. I mean, how tall these trees grow and how fast they grow. So it was, if it's a violation, then it's a violation now. So we've got more than just one problem.
Yeah, the condition you had living in there. That's been 20 years ago. The one with the ordinance put it in setback.
Then this is basically the same outline for the ordinance since 1980.
Yeah, when that section was added.
All the other boat houses on the lake built before this ordinance.
Many of them were, but some of them no. Where was that? That presentation at?
The ordinance is only
07,
Sorry.
6, chapter 6,
What page?
89.
I'd be glad to take a look at that, but I'm thinking that Grant's on the looking at it, I can't tell you. Yes.
I'm just going, seeing where you did that.
Okay. Section B, fences permitted in residential, says limits required, front yard setback. The answer shall seek 550%. Okay, I volume 3 and on the next page, page 90, that's about height.
Yeah, we are looking at several variances here for small village property. Questions from the board or comments? Ms. Marshall?
No questions.
Okay. Mr. Osborne? Mr. Manaway? With everything. I'd like to open it up to anybody joining us online. Please identify yourself.
Good evening. This is Steve Snyder. I'm an attorney at 200 West Main Street in Syracuse. I'm here on behalf of Phil Kraus, who owns the property at 508 East Washington Street, which is immediately adjacent and to the west of the Green property. Mr. Kraus's property has 40 feet of lake frontage and is located in the same L1 Lake District as the Green property. There are numerous variances that are being requested, including one to allow this structure to be 8 feet from the water's edge when 25 feet is required, to allow it to have 392 square feet versus the 250 square foot maximum contained in the ordinance, and to allow it to be 12 feet 6 inches high as opposed to the 2 foot 6 inches high maximum contained in the ordinance. I have spent numerous occasions in Culver, and I spend most of my time in Kosciuszko County dealing with lake issues similar to these. I have always been very impressed with Culver's zoning ordinance because of the protections it affords the lakefront. And that's not just from the standpoint of next door neighbors on the lakefront, but from the standpoint of the recognition of the aesthetic pleasantness of Maxinkuckee and exactly how valuable that is to the Culver community. When you are looking at variances, you're very familiar, I know, with the findings of fact that you must determine whether or not to approve a variance. In this particular case, you need to take a look at what the effect will be on the Kraus property, especially since it is immediately next door. Lake properties, to a great extent, carry with them a value factor attributable to the view of the lake. If you're going to have a lakefront property, you want to look at the lake. There have been some comments made tonight that this will have absolutely no effect on Mr. Kraus's view. If you look at the first photograph, the Google photograph that I think Chuck just distributed, Exhibit A, you can see that there's a very open area between the Green property and the Kraus property, and that open area runs all the way down to the lake. If you were to picture a 12.5 foot tall structure on the Green lakefront, there is no way that it would not be in the view line of the Kraus property. The Kraus property just doesn't have a view to the south, it has a view to the east as well. And I tried to outline the areas of that view in Exhibit B. It's almost a 90-degree angle from the corner of the condominiums to the south, and then eastward towards the piers in front of the public park. It's not a narrow strip, and this proposed structure would end up right in the middle of that view area. Interference with the view detracts from property values. I think we can all agree on that. It's also inconsistent with the current conditions on the lakefront. L1 district exists northeast and southwest of the Kraus property, and all of the structures within that L1 district, both to the southwest and the northeast, are at least 25 feet back from the water's edge, including the condominiums. There has been mention earlier about the trail and the easement that exists for that trail. I unfortunately got into this operation too late to find a copy of that easement, but the proposed structure is 1 foot from the existing trail. Without a survey, we don't know the boundaries of that easement and whether the pavement is in fact the boundary of the easement, or whether this proposed structure would actually be located in a part of the easement that does not have asphalt on it. This easement also is mentioned in the master plan of the pathways for the town of Culver, and Exhibit C is a part of that appears on the website, and it shows specifically that this is one of the more significant parts of the trail connecting downtown with Culver Park. Any interference with that would be significant. I think everyone will agree the trail is a wonderful asset utilized by visitors, whether they're downtown or at Culver Park, but will be utilized significantly and should not be interfered with. The intent to provide that path adjacent to the lake would suffer if this structure were built. Your ordinance says you can't put up a fence over 5 feet high, and it has to be at least 50% or open. This would be a 28-foot long, 12-foot high fence, 1 foot from the edge of the trail, blocking any view from the trail out to the lake for that portion. The findings of fact that you're required to make by your ordinance are significant, and all of them must be found positively in order for you to approve that variance request. The first of those is that if the variance is approved, it cannot be injurious to public health, safety, morals, and general welfare. There has been a significant expense devoted to creating the trail, which runs in this very spot. The structure will certainly detract from that trail, and the trail was created with consideration given to the effect of Lake 1 zoning lakefront restrictions in anticipation that they would be followed. Secondly, you must find that the use and value of adjacent property will not be affected in a substantially adverse manner. First of all, let's look at use of the adjacent property. Use of the lakefront of the Kraus property will suffer a change of character. It's currently open without structure. It may have landscaping on it, but that's natural greenery as opposed to a 400 square foot, 12.5 foot tall structure. The proposal would cover nearly 25% of the open area between the trail and the water. That affects the use of the Kraus lakefront property, in addition to the view from the Kraus residence, which would be looking right at this structure in the center of its lake view. Secondly, what's the effect on value? As I said earlier, the view of the lake is a significant portion of the value of property, probably second only to the amount of lake frontage. The loss of the view significantly reduces the value of property, and the intent of the L1 lakefront restrictions is to improve or to preserve that particular value. Finally, you must find that the strict application of the terms of the ordinance will result in practical difficulty in the use of the green property. Property difficulty has been defined by the courts, and I actually attached a copy of that definition at I think Exhibit F, but just to read it into the record. This is quoting from a court case from the Indiana Court of Appeals in 2014. We have articulated several factors for a reviewing court to consider in determining whether compliance with a zoning ordinance will result in practical difficulties. 1, whether significant economic injury will result if the ordinance is enforced. 2, whether the injury is self-created. And 3, whether there are feasible alternatives. Let's look at those elements. There is no second significant economic injury to the green property if this variance is denied. The green property value will not be affected in any way because it won't change. There will be no change to the property without this structure. Its value won't change. It's merely a request to add a structure. If it can't be built, the property will retain its current value. There is no significant economic injury. Is it self-created? Well, right now, the green property is very usable as an exquisite lakefront property on Lake Maxinkuckee. That won't change. It will be usable in the same fashion as it currently is. We are merely looking at the desire of an owner to have a structure on the water where waterfront structures are not permitted and in a size that grossly exceeds the limitations in the ordinance. The property can be and has been used in compliance with the ordinance. There's no hardship, and if there is a hardship, it is merely the broken heart of the Greens because they can't build what they want to build. Finally, there are feasible alternatives. They could construct a building in compliance with this ordinance if it met the setback requirements and the elevation requirements. They may have 10 or 12 steps to come down to the lake, but that was their choice at the time they acquired the property. A stopping off point between their pier and their front door is not necessary. As you look at the photographs that I have submitted, I think you can see this would be a very significant disruption to a very well-preserved neighborhood, which is beneficial to the lakefront, beneficial to the value of adjacent properties, and simply contrary to your ordinance. There is no evidence that any of the 3 elements that are required to be proved on behalf of the petitioner have in fact been proved, and she hasn't met her burden. I believe your own ordinance requires that the petition be denied because when you make your findings of fact, if one of those is not positive, the variance cannot be approved. I don't believe any of the 3 can be answered positively. Any questions? Sometimes you freeze up, and this is one of them.
I'm sorry.
That's all right. Thank you.
Do we have anybody else online that would like to make a comment? I hear no other comments.
Do I talk now? Hi, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Hi,
Please identify.
this is Janet Osterbahn, and I live at 504 East Washington Street. And, first off, I'd just like to say that the Greens are my neighbors, and they are truly great people, and I absolutely love having them as neighbors. Having said that, I do have a question. My property also extends over 80 feet along the lakeside of the path and is separated by only 1 pier from the Greens lakefront. Our property has an unobstructed view of the lake, And people stop there all the time to take selfies of themselves against the lake. So my question is, if you approve this variance, can I expect a similar response if I propose doing the same thing, including blocking the lake view and closing the path is needed for construction?
You know, if, yes, I mean, there's nothing that stops you for applying for a variance, anything. And it's not necessarily if we approve this or not. You know, we might not approve it and turn around and you can still ask for one. You know, we tried to look at them on a separate basis. But I understand your question, and I agree. A bunch of little pavilions along the lake would not be anything very attractive. Anybody else like to make a comment?
Yes, we have an audience.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Jim.
Okay, just let me take care of the people on the phone. So Jeff Mansfield, 222 Lakeview.
Thank you.
So I do have some questions. First, you know, I was said earlier that the structure would be on the other side of the fence. Yeah, when I went over and looked at the markings there earlier this week, the marking is on the.
Can I address that?
Yeah.
The reason why is because we didn't think anybody could see it on the other side of the fence, so they put it there or with the arrow pointing to it, but it would be on the other side of the fence. It was just so people could find it as they walk by.
Okay, I understand. The other question is, you know, you're putting a toilet down there. How are you planning on addressing the sewage?
That's a good question. And we don't know if it gets approved, if the toilet would even work. You know, it's something we like, if it could work, it would be great. You know, obviously if it's something that we got into and they said, hey, there's no way to hook into, it would be off the table. If they said it's going to be, you know, $50,000 to do it, then that's not worth it, obviously. It was just something to see, hey, if it's approved, then we'll look into it and see if we can do it. And then if not, then it would be off the table.
Because it strikes me that looking at the plots of that area, that you either have to get an easement from one of the neighbors to go to Washington, or you're going to have to continue to, you're going to have to pump it up the hill into your existing.
And the pool is not, I mean, like if you guys say that's not an option, we're fine with taking that. If we need to put it down to the 250 square feet, we're there. But obviously, we need something a little taller than 30 inches, so we don't all have to crawl around in there. But we're open to suggestions. You know, we would just like something for us all to be able to go. There's a lot of us, you know, we're a big family. It would be nice to have something for us all to sit down there together. But when we're not saying this is what we want, we're open suggestions.
I'd also like to add that the bushes that are currently there against the fence are already 12 feet high. The building will not be that high, and it will not obstruct our neighbor whatsoever.
And actually, the green area that the green area that he's talking is, I'm trying to remember what it was talking about looking over and looking for the view. It was actually their yard that he's like, you know, has that great view. Just see the end corner that goes through.
So if they put one within the setbacks, like you saying they should, that would block his view, because this is just down in that little nook where
he would actually just be looking over.
Well, it would block your view, not necessarily. I mean, take a look.
It doesn't block anyone's view.
Your house is my favorite on the lake. I love that house.
Because it was a brothel. that why?
That's my
I
dad.
said it next to all. Blank house, you know what I'm saying? Sorry for. Everybody knows what I'm talking about.
As far as the fence goes, if the ordinance says 5 feet, it has to be okay. That's-
Getting bushes on both sides.
Yeah.
There's a lot of trail, you can't even see the lake.
I mean, I know what you're saying, there's other things to construct, that's one thing, and whether you grandfather not.
Right.
But the ordinance still does require that for everybody, that's the ordinance.
Yeah. Someone speaking, please move closer to the
Sorry.
microphones. It's just.
Oh. Yeah.
Or maybe pull your mask down a little bit while you're trying to, that probably help also.
So I do have a quick question.
Okay, sorry. Jeff.
So what would be the impact on the path during construction? Because, you know, especially during the summer, you know, we have a boat on the park. House is on Lakeview, and we're always using that pathway.
Yeah.
And, you know, it really become a real burden to have to go all the way around, and if we can't use that pathway
Right.
during
Well,
the construction.
I don't think that at any time that pathway should be blocked, you know, with the public access and, you know, doing that. And if it gets approved tonight, they start sooner and hopefully be done before summer, even if it was with approval with stipulation. Yeah.
And I guess my last comment is, you know, you mentioned the hardship of, you know, the number of steps, but I've seen other homes around the lake, you know, driving around the boat around the lake, where there's maybe even more than 12 steps to go up to get up to their homes. So I can't really see that as the hardship that should be considered, approved because of this hardship.
Right. Well, I guess she was going to say this, but my sister-in-law passed away in August, left behind 4 girls. Their father passed away a few years ago. My in-laws have taken them in, and they're raising them. You know, you're 74, my father-in-law 75. You know, children are in college, coming home this summer. And we have the younger two. We actually bought a condo, and the Harbor condominiums is getting remodeled now. Should be done in a few weeks. And we're moving in next door to help with them, and we have our 3 boys. So, you know, just spending this time with them, you know, and my father-in-law, I mean, he still gets around, but those stairs are a lot. So it'd be nice if he could sit down there and watch the kids swim and discover, and, you know, just to spend that time together.
You know, and I thought lost earlier, right? That's very sad. And, you know, I understand. I remember you guys out there looking at the lake and that. So it's, you know, I can understand that. I just, you know, concerned about the precedent it sets also, because, you know, we do it here, and then
Right.
other people around the lake are going to want to put, you know, their down there too. So,
Well, example, right across from where Danny lives. I mean, the road separates it. It'd be nice to have something out there, and you're right, it does set a precedence that.
it's down the slippery slope. Yeah.
And there's several properties along there that might say, well, that'd be a good idea.
Yeah.
Mr.
Can I speak?
Thank you.
Sorry.
Yeah, I'm sorry. This is Marty Ostervon. I live at 504 East Washington Street. And I have a comment as well. Actually, what I'd like to do is just read into the record a couple of facts, if I could. One, the architect has made the assertion a couple of times that it doesn't impact anybody's lake view. I just want to acknowledge the fact that I can stand at my front door and see the arborvitaes, right, that are being talked about here. And so I will have to look out over this structure to see the lake from my front door. Okay, that's a fact. Okay, the second thing, and I'd like to address Mr. Easterday's oxymoron that he talked about before. The goal of the town of Culver's comprehensive plan, one of the goals, is to enhance the existing access points to the lake. I think you'll find that on page 41. And in this case, and having served on the planning commission, I understand the history of this. In this case, it's private property, but that 30-inch height requirement, or restriction, I should say, and the 50-50, 50% opacity on the fence and the 5-foot height, it effectively creates access points, visible access points to the lakes. It's private property. You can't walk over the property, but you get to see the lake over that property. And that's why the goal, and that's why those restrictions are there, because it is in keeping in furtherance of the goal of the comprehensive plan for the town of Culver. So, these access points are shrinking in number. And I really do agree that with earlier comments that they should be protected, for the benefit of the town, and particularly along a designated walking and biking trail that is at the heart of the Culver Stellar biking and trail plan. So thank you.
Anybody else? I'm sorry. Okay. Don, are you there?
Any call in?
He had to call in last night.
Maybe somebody's phone or something.
Don?
Okay. Mr. President. Mr. President.
Yeah.
I have two comments on construction. To go along, your 14 feet difference from your house to the lake, 14 feet drop, as shown here. But the other thing that you said, can you put a restroom in there and get rid of the sewage? You can put a lift station there and pump it up to your house. That is.
The bathroom's not the important thing.
Well,
It's
I just
the gas
wanted
is an
to-
option.
wanted you to know that,
Oh,
but those
okay.
are available
Yeah.
and you could do.
Yeah.
Is he calling in, Karen?
He is, but he's not.
Karen, could you just have him call in on somebody's phone? We'll just put him on speakerphone on one of our phones.
Well, he's not accessible now.
Oh, sorry. Oh, sorry. I thought you were communicating with him.
I was until he hung up.
Oh,
He usually phone call in on the line.
yeah, but I was just thinking if he's having trouble, so, or we're having trouble.
Technology is so good.
Especially when you're in kind of
I started the meeting telling you how I worried last night.
I'm sorry?
That's how I started the meeting, telling you how I worried last night.
Yeah.
Trying to get
Yep.
a 6-person conference call together.
Once it gets going, it's not too bad, but,
It's been in and out.
and if we were 14 years old, we wouldn't have any trouble with it at all.
True. That's my 8-year-old. Still don't have to do it.
Yep.
I need a teenage consultant.
Yeah.
The comment that was made earlier as far as the lake, Marty made this comment, and I know I've been on the planning commission.
I didn't mean that. I did not take it that way.
I've been on there for 20 years, and one of the main things that me, I can speak for myself, but several members of the plan commission, the number one asset is the lake. And, you know, every ordinance that we make that can protect that, you know, it's gotta be a pretty good hardship, you know, pretty bad, you know, to even influence as far as what you need to look at as far as what you're doing. I'm just saying this in general, not on anybody in particular. But I know there's been several circumstances that applications have been made over the years that the people want to put giant boathouses and everything down. I know I mentioned about boathouses over, and that was the reason it was stopped. It was because the view, the actual beauty of the lake was being dissolved. I mean, it was, you know, we've done as much as trying to get the ordinance as far as the see-through fences, you know, anything that was perpendicular with the home or the site from the road to the lake. Anything between them as far as foliage, trees, everything. We tried whatever we could see that would actually protect and still give the homeowner the beauty of the property that they have. For the price that you have to pay. But that lake is just a very, very important asset.
Don, Mr. Fox, are you there?
Yeah, I am. Thanks. You think I've not been on Teams before. This is Don Fox at 301 North Shore Lane. And, you know, the Plan Commission is well represented, of course, on the BCA and from Marty's experience as well. But I'm just very concerned in terms of this proposed variant and possible slippery slope and trend that it could set for large structures down by the lake. And I absolutely agree with what Marty said in terms of the comprehensive plan, as well as it is not at all random or arbitrary that we have a 30-inch height limit, because, you know, a small storage box to put your lake toys in is something that somebody can see over and they can still enjoy the lake, which is a state asset, a regional asset. So there was actually a great deal of care and thought that went into drafting that. And while I'm, entirely sympathetic that anybody wanting to maximize their use of the lake shore, if you have access to it, I just think this would be a really, really unfortunate precedent for the BCA to approve. So thanks for letting me comment and for Karen passing along the number so I could call in.
Okay, thank you, Don. Other comments, questions? You ready to move to finding of fact?
I'm not seeing 3 votes here. Is that a fair statement?
I think it probably is, yes.
I move to table.
Yeah. Again, to the
That's the second time. Okay. The last time I had that.
You just keep it,
No,
Danny.
I'll get a new.
I think you just like to come see us, Jim.
Well, after tonight, I don't.
You'll never do that. You'll never.
Gentlemen, this is Steve Snyder. You broke up for that entire bit of stating. I have no idea what you just did.
What we just did was,
Oh, the attorney, is it the attorney?
Yes. Yeah.
we just tabled this till the next, we decided not to go for the attorney, Mr. Easterday requested that we table this to the next meeting, so that if they want to make some changes, look at it in a different way, they can come back.
And what
You
would
understand?
what would the date of that meeting be?
I'm sorry. April 15th.
Wow.
This guy just has my back when I get
Yeah.
Okay, Okay, we still have any other old business we need to talk about?
No, we have to actually do some. we need to do it. Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah, me too. I was ready to go.
You get a ride home?
Any other old business?
Yeah, can I bring up just a couple things? I
New
know you-
business?
Wait. You go.
Oh, I'm sorry.
You just ran right over me.
I was looking at Chuck and he was backing up.
I know. That's why I'm like, ah, let me tell you. So Chuck, you like property measure for whether or not it's actually within the 35-foot requirement. As Danny predicted, seeing those trusses sitting there in the yard, he's like, that is not going to be a flat roof. And as I asked a bunch of times, you're putting a house with no eaves, correct? And no eaves, correct? And he was like, yep, got vaulted roof with eaves. So, yes. And then the other thing I just wanted to say, remember the Jones property where we not let them extend their driveway all the way through because it was extending the non-compliance of how it was close, so close to the property line of their neighbor over, also on State Street, believe it or not. Well, it looked like they were doing it anyway, and I was in a, like, what? They actually bought 10 feet into their neighbor. It looks weird because it's at the bottom of the slope of a hill. And Chuck was nice enough because he never showed me, but.
Well, I know the plan showed the heat on.
Yeah.
Showed it on that.
We just didn't know about it, so I was like, whoa, what are they doing? But anyway, but that's fine, and he showed me that.
We're good with that.
We're good.
Yeah, I saw the paper.
It still looks
I
squished, looks a little crowded there because of the 10 feet is a hill,
Yeah, it's a strange.
Yeah. Just a short note, as that's another condition where the house is being contained at the same original footprint. And so they have that same thing they did on the couple north side. Zero.
Right, yeah. Oh, which is why we turned it down the first time. Yeah.
The Burns house, just so you know, I was out there today in the rain. No contractors around. It's still a little bit premature to tell exactly where the top of the roof is.
Right.
Only a little bit, because I can add on the sheeting and the shingles and the ridge cap.
Right.
I can add on 1.5 inches and figure it out. But just counting the OSB sheet.
I never thought about that, Chuck. That's,
even easier.
yeah, I can even do that.
Dang.
So I counted those. It looks like it's going to be right at 35 feet wide. Bob Porter and I are going out with the bucket truck, and he's going to get up there and anchor it. I'll measure down to the bottom and see what we got. Absolutely.
There's an app that you can get on your phone that will do it. You got to step back. All right. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, I'm with Kevin over here that yes, we do that, but and while we're out there, we're going to be looking at the overhangs, as Bruce said. We could have, wasn't supposed to have any overhangs. The way it looks, there's rafter tails sticking out. These near, so may or may not be stopping them. If you guys want, I'll send you out an email after I look at it.
Yeah,
but by going up there in the bucket truck, dropping the tape straight down, it looked to me like it was going to be 35 feet without any foundation. It's probably going to be 36. That's good.
And I know, I judge coming off the hill and looking back there and coming toward it from the east, turn to the other. We don't know the house is 35. But
Yeah.
I think it's over 35 already. And due to ordinance now it's higher. But they look like they're the same.
Yeah, they do.
It's over as far as my eyes. They're not.
I'm not gonna go measure it. I'm just worried about tolerances.
Don't measure it, no. That much goes in it. I think prior to, what is it, 1885?
Okay, any other new business we need to talk about? I mean, that's old business. Of course, we got 4 things coming up on the 1st of April.
Is there going to be anything on, and following that on April 15th? Do we have other stuff
Yes,
coming?
we already have,
I filed one today.
I think we have 3 on the 15th.
Okay.
April 1st was a problem that we had. That was the first month that Jonathan's been gone, that we didn't have access to what he had. So we didn't have those 3 cases. Just thought because of the time of the year and them meeting and wanting to get that done, it was our mistake, our problem. And I appreciate you guys.
Well, and we're gonna have plenty to do on the 15th.
Yeah, exactly. Well, because we're gonna have 3 of Jonathan.
We're gonna have Jim back at 3 and 3 others.
I thought tonight we were only gonna have 1.
No, yeah, kind of, we turn this, does this go off?
No, we're still.
Oh, excuse me, we're not adjourned.
Any new stuff on City Tavern? What's going on there?
I don't know if you heard this or not, Scotty Van Hawk filed bankruptcy. So now that's holding it up. Now it's in bankruptcy court. And so it's just another
game he's playing.
Another game that he's playing that costs us money. And
It's same thing with his house up in college.
Yes.
Under bankruptcy, actually could be somebody else.
It depends on the judge, does whether he allows it to stay in the estate or not, or, whether he, because we have such a big stake in it, whether we just go. But it's another one of his games.
Such a shame, because that house up on College Avenue wasn't too bad.
No.
And somebody said they went in it and said there's mold in the basement and all kinds of places. It was really too bad. And not good for the neighborhood.
It is a nice home with that wood.
Still working on Apples, trying to get receivership on that property from Judge Lee's receivership.
Receivership.
So,
what does that entail?
Well, where we can go in and make a determination, and we'll sell off this junk piece of equipment, we'll do this, we'll do that. Yeah, recoup and run his finances. Also had a complaint that I'm working on down the road from him, Fred Elliott, using the property as a business. So we're talking to him. He's out there today to confirm that.
Where Mike Elliott lives?
No, on the north side. Sherwood owns that property. 17 real estate maybe. No.
Okay.
North side. Goes to the west of where Apple's at. North side of the road. So
it's not the one that's way back.
no, it's not way back. No, it looks like a little modular house. Anyway, that's one.
Anything else? Hey, there's nothing else? Anybody else on board? You on the first?
Thank you.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Kevin, did you have anything you want to talk to?
On a motion to adjourn?
Second and third.
All right.
You know, that as the person who types up all the minutes,